Hey guys, and welcome back to All the Mods 10. This is episode 21, and in the previous one I made this nuclear reactor. Now, at the moment, all the steam is being trashed, but in this episode I would like to use that steam to make some additional power for my system, because my system's dying. It doesn't look like it, but you can see that the power just fluctuates around, and that means that the input is kind of close to the output, and you can see this number steadily ticking down. So every now and again, a machine turns on, sucks back a whole load of power. Yeah, I don't want that happening. So turbines will go right here. Also, between episodes, I did some decorating to, keep the same motifs going throughout the design here. I still don't know quite what to do with that square or this hallway thing that has eventually come up, but I'll figure the stuff out. Kind of going organically here. But yeah, I want the turbines to go right in the space here. So let's get started. And I'm currently trying to figure out a good placement for turbines that can match the vibe I'm looking for. But this is what is this? I think it's a 21 by 21 on the outside. So 17, 19, 21. Yeah. And so if I want to have this sort of border going around it, this ends up being a rectangle. Now I cannot extend this line further this way because then it'll be square, but this line will have a kink in it and come out to here. And if I make it too small, then why even make a turbine that small? So kind of torn here. I might just go with a decently large turbine here and another decently large turbine over here. Yeah, I think I'll go with that. And yeah, this is sort of the thing I've come up with. Two 9x9 turbines, and I think I can make them about yay tall. I don't think this interferes at all visually. Now, the exact layout and setup of a turbine can differ because it's a multi-block. You can build it in any shape or size imaginable, just like this reactor. So you kind of have to build the turbine and then, modify its height, modify the number of condensers and vents to match the steam output of your reactor to the conversion potential and the water output of your turbine. So it's a extremely case-by-case basis. So what I'm actually doing is I have the Mekanism wiki for the industrial turbine open right now, and it has the exact notes and the formulas required to build, I guess, the optimal turbine for a given square footage. So this is a 9x9 turbine, and so the height has a constraint, and I'm just going to build the maximum size possible. So now with the bottom filled in, according to the wiki, the maximum shaft height is the minimum of two numbers. And I'll put the formulas on the screen. 2 times the length minus 5 or 14. So the smaller of the two numbers is your shaft height. Now my length happens to be 9 blocks. So times 2 would be 18, and then minus 5 would be 13. So my max rotor length would be 13 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now I just need to build up this casing to match and fill in the sides with the reactor glass just as this. And now that this is all built up, I have to put down all of the blades. Each shaft takes 2 blades, and you can just hold down right click and they automatically go into here. So this would have taken 26 because of the 13 rotors, and I have 24 left, so the math checks out. On top of this turbine rotor goes a rotational complex, and then pressure dispersers fill out this space. Okay, just like that. Now I'm just going to go fill this in. Whoops. Now to actually generate the power, you need something called the electromagnetic coil. It needs to touch the block under it, which is the rotational assembly, rotational complex. So that goes there. And according to the wiki, each one of these can support 4 of these fan blades. So I used 26. 26 divided by 4, let's just say 28. I need 7 of these. So 1, 2, 3. They don't need to be in any sort of pattern. They just need to touch each other. That is 6. And I guess this will be the 7th. Now the rest of this can be vents and saturating condensers. The condensers increase the capacity of the turbine to make water from steam, and the vents just help you pipe the steam out faster. I will just go ahead and put the wiki link in the description so that you guys can follow it if you wish to. But now we go condensers, and I'll just fill this out entirely. Now I had to take a little bit off the top again, because looking at the formula for the maximum allowed height of a turbine, it is 2 times the length minus 1 or 18, and it's the minimum of those two numbers. So for me, 2 times the length is 18 because, well, it's a 9x9 turbine. And -1 is 17, and the minimum of 17 and 18 is, well, 17, so this is now 16 blocks tall, plus the one in the ground. In fact, I can just measure it out like so. Boop. And that is 16 blocks, that is the 17th, and so this becomes the new max height. That's rather unfortunate, but whatever. And so this is what this thing has ended up looking like. I'm just going to fill in the rest of the spaces with vents, just because I can. And once I'm completed with this multi-block, it'll light up and then tell me exactly what's lacking in the turbine department. And done. The red particles means that I did this correctly. And somehow my turbine has ended up the exact same height as the reactor. How interesting. Now if I go into statistics, it tells me that for my given turbine, the number of blades is a limiting factor, and the number of vents is also a limiting factor. Now I, for one, cannot add more blades to this turbine because then... Or can I? Is my math wrong? Hold on, let me cross-check my math real quick. And to put steam into a turbine, you need a turbine valve, which can I put it in the top, actually? I'd love to put it in the top. Yeah, so that I can manage it from the top. And to put out power, I think I'm going to put the power tap in this little spot right here. Perfect. Now, I wonder if I want to output a whole boatload of steam and input a whole boatload of water, what sort of system exists that lets me, with effectively infinite throughput, use fluids and literally anything else? I wonder. Yeah, it's subnets. I'm gonna use a interface on that end and a storage bus on this guy, so that all the steam that's piped out goes into this storage bus, and on a lower priority is gonna be the trash. So the steam goes in here, and if it can't, it goes to the trash. For now, let's not forget what I'm up to. I want to now take this guy and connect it up over here. And then this should mean that all of the steam that this creates would be put into the system. And the only place where I am pushing steam into storage is here. Now, I just hope that the steam doesn't end up in some mechanism cells in here, because, well, these are a little bit empty and at a higher priority. So, maybe I should just make the priority for those storage buses higher than my main network. That's a smarter idea. And a rather helpful tool for testing reasons is an energy trash can. So all of the energy this produces will just be, well, actually, I want to hold on to this energy for now. I want to see it work. So, ain't no time like the present to just activate the reactor. It should be producing a bunch of steam that should make this turbine spin. And sure enough, turbine goes spin. And currently it is producing 133,000 FE per tick. And it is just spinning ever so slowly. Now remember that the reactor is barely running and barely even producing any steam right now. I wonder if any of it's being voided at the moment. It shouldn't be. And hey, this thing can hold 8.81 giga FE, so it's also a big huge battery. And I was just checking out my system and I realized that even though this thing's constantly crafting up pumpkins, it's slowly overproducing all the pumpkins and eating up my nature essence. So I've just come up with a clever solution. And that comes in the form of a quantum crafter. I was reading into what this thing is when I was building the big machine up there. And yeah, just caught my eye back then, and I've just recognized the fact that this would be the perfect application to use something like this. So I would replace it with this thing and put it right here. I believe now I can put in a recipe for pumpkins and make it craft a set number of pumpkins. I'll just show you. So this machine uses a single channel, just like the export bus that was here a second ago. I can put in a crafting pattern and configure the pattern to keep, I don't know, 10,000. I don't know. I don't think I need that much. 2048 in the system, and limit these crafts to, I don't know, 128 pumpkins. Now with this configured, I should enable this, and now there'll be pumpkins in my storage network, right? But of course I have to wait for the nature essence to build up to 2048. So I think I can just set this to 100 for now, for testing purposes. And do I have 100 nature essence? Not yet. It'll build up eventually. What I really want to do is have this set to, instead of ME export, have it export to allowed nearby containers, and that happens to be this one right here. So I could just say delete all and output into this thing. Now, only when I have 2048 nature essence will I use pumpkins to make more biofuel here. And in the meantime, it'll just use the biomass that has been produced already. I think this thing's pretty cool. Now, I do recognize the fact that this in no way fixes the overproduction problem for biofuel, but what it gives me is a buffer of nature essence, so it's not constantly running out. What has run out, however, is my fissile fuel, so I turned the reactor off, and I think it's time to put in a proper setup for dealing with my nuclear waste instead of sending it upstairs and downstairs and all of that jazz. Because I now have the nuclear radioactive waste disk right here. And what I want to use this disk for is storing my nuclear waste, which gets processed into not only polonium, but also plutonium. And it's made in another PRC, but it's made from plutonium instead of polonium, and that's made in an isotopic centrifuge instead of the solar neutron activators. So, I'm thinking that I'll make another couple of these just in case this runs out. It's a fairly cheap craft at this point. And I'll set up a system that deals with that. Okay, and I've just had to blip my reactor on for just a split second to flush out this. This was at 4 millibuckets, just made 1 millibucket of waste, which turned into enough plutonium here, or polonium here, to then be processed into, well, as imagine one of these. And you can shift right click these to know what's in them. But now that this is empty and this is empty, these are now safe to pick up. So, yeah, finally, I can start cleaning up here. And this is a dangerous game to play. You don't want to, well, of course, you can play with fire. That's one thing. Playing with radioactive waste is an entirely different thing. So, my advice is to only, shift right click a barrel first, and then pluck it out if it's empty. No chemicals stored. And only when you see the no chemicals stored, should you then go ahead and pick this up. Now I'm just going to clean up my mess up here and then move my stuff underground somewhere. Hopefully not too far away, but that's okay. And yeah, this guy has stored polonium in it, so everything past this point is safe to pick up. And I believe this should be going down. I hope so, at least. 99 millibuckets of polonium. If there was one extra millibucket, I could have done something with it. Unfortunately not, I don't think. I can, however, pipe it back into my system and deal with it that way. I think that's what I'm going to do. Because all of this will be automated through AE2 anyways, so having the liquid polonium or chemical polonium in my system doesn't actually hurt much at all. And I have just put in 2 more for plutonium and polonium. And this is where all of my radioactive waste is going to be stored. This does mean that this little barrel right here can now be emptied out into my ME system, and hopefully I never have to touch it ever again. So I would need an import bus. Not a regular one's fine. I don't know. Sure. Import bus and just a few cables. And in a second now, hopefully this thing's completely empty. No chemical stored. Perfect. And I can take this too. Thank you. It's almost as if nothing ever happened here. And obviously that can't be the only place where I store my nuclear waste, and of course spent nuclear waste also exists. So I've spent the last little bit making this room right here, and I'm completely gonna fill with barrels. And these barrels will all be hooked up to a singular tank that will be connected to my network at a lower storage priority than those drives right there. So if those drives ever fill up, and the storage is looking for somewhere else to put nuclear waste or spent nuclear waste, they will end up directly in the storage bus that leads here. So I think I'm going to fill all the way out to the edges here with barrels. And I do believe these have a tick rate, like these consume some TPS, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make for the safekeeping of my base. Something like this. And this is an amount. I forgot how many. I don't remember off the top of my head, But on the back side here, I would like to put down one of these and one of those. Now this will get the ultimate pipe upgrade that I was using earlier, like so. And also we'll get a storage bus right here, like that. And what else? I would need a cable, of course, to hook up this thing to the storage bus. And this storage bus would be filtered to all the wastes. So spent nuclear waste will go directly in here, and so will nuclear waste, should this overflow. And this is at a 0 priority, while the disks up here happen to be at like 10,000 or something. Yeah, 9,001, because it's over 9,000. And you know, in hindsight, just for testing purposes, I want to make sure that this chemical tank gets what I wanted to get. And I might just put in 2 chemical tanks, one for spent waste, one for regular waste overflow. But given that this has fissile fuel, I should be able to activate this. The nuclear waste should just disappear. And if all is working properly, the nuclear waste should have ended up, well, the nuclear waste would have ended up in those disks up there, and the spent nuclear waste will end up down there. And to test that theory, I would have to set up the processing chain for, well, the rest of the stuff, which is the plutonium and polonium. And so, to that effect, I would like to put down one of these isotopic centrifuges right there, a PRC there, a PRC there, and basically mirroring what I did on that side. And I make it look nice and symmetrical. Put down cables like so. Now, also, you might notice that I have put in a lever-based security system, let's just call it, to make sure I don't accidentally click drives in and out. And, you know, although this serves no functional purpose because I can obviously just pick at it from the sides, it serves as a gentle reminder to, well, not interact with this on accident, because that is certain death. Now, you might notice that both of these are blue. That's a little bit of polonium, and that's a little bit of nuclear waste from that blip, which will hopefully soon get processed into polonium and plutonium. And this basically means I get to encode a few recipes now. So, polonium. Actually, I should do this the other way around, where I do this here, and just simply click the recipe in. Like so. And then the other one would be plutonium. Plutonium, which is this stuff right here. And now both of these are encoded. And just pick and choose. This one goes here. This one goes here. Set up the inputs and outputs. Set this one up to make plutonium, the liquid, like so. And I like this conversion ratio here. Right, not show up, do not show up, and do not show up. Perfect. I think I will toggle this such that this only works when it's nighttime, and the daytime stuff works during the day. And I have just gone ahead and also put down the P2P, relinked the steam turbines wireless connection because that was full of channels. And I wonder if this stuff is also full of channels. I should just go back and make sure. Please wait. This one doesn't need a channel. That one's device online. That one is also device online. And that is actively working actually. So it all seems to be okay. When stuff runs out of channels, it says device online and device missing channels. So just wanted to make sure. Either way, setting cleared. Take this, and I will now take this upstairs. And I will also be using this redstone P2P for some shenanigans for controlling the amount of stuff I produce. So somewhat simply here, I kind of just need a singular place, and funny enough, I think this is exactly where the previous stuff was set up. But this goes here, and this one will also get a pattern provider, like so. And connect it up to here, connect that up to there, and just want to make sure it's connected to the right thing. Looks like it is. And now this thing will get the pattern for, wait for it, polonium. The only difference in the setup being that instead of outputting to the left, I would like to set this as its input output. That's pretty much it actually. So it produces the polonium, and the polonium screws right off back into the system. What's different this time though is that I will be using P2P tunnels and redstone P2P to control the behavior of this guy. So a little bit of circuitry later, something like this I'm assuming, and that I will need a piece of redstone for sure. That should be just fine. And Right click that. I hope I didn't place it on there. I did. Redstone P2P, redstone P2P. Cool. Now this would be the input, this would be the output, and the one down there would be an output. And given that this has a power of 15 right now, I would like this to work with redstone detection normal. So that means when it has power, it'll work. When there's no power, it won't work. So when it's nighttime, this thing turns off. I hope you see where this is going. And where it's going is right down here, where this guy will work with an inverted signal. So when there's no power or no signal, that thing turns on. Or sorry, when there is a signal, the neutron activator produces polonium. And when it's nighttime, this thing produces plutonium. And in all fairness, sometimes I sleep the night away, sometimes I don't. In general, I kind of don't care until there's a thunderstorm. And so I think it'll be a fairly even distribution. Plus, these being right up front makes it so that I can always listen in. And I also plan on using one of these, an industrial alarm. Now, this seems to be on because of the fact that it was connected to redstone right there, but by default it's off. And I'm going to use a couple of ME level emitters and set up a couple of these alarms just so that I can monitor what's happening. In case there's too much waste buildup or something, an alarm will sound. And this is what my alarm system will look like. I have 3 channels left, so I can set up 3 level emitters. Oh, not like that. Like that. And with some sort of backing block. I think I'm using black anti-block on that side. And for the sake of consistency, I might as well just do the same. I want to put it right back here. And actually, I think I have facades for it too, to hide that cable. And I can put down level emitters. And all of these are emitting at the moment, but I would like to emit when it is above a certain amount. For, let's say, if there's plutonium and there is more than 100 plutonium, 100 buckets of plutonium, sound the alarm. And I'll just do the same for the others. Just like that. This one's for spent nuclear waste, and this one's for polonium. And with all of this prep work out of the way, I think with a few induction cards, my system should be ready for a quick little test run. The last problem I'm facing is the fact that I need to make it so that these run constantly. That is, plutonium and polonium are constantly requested. And on one hand, one would imagine that you could use a quantum crafter, but of course I imagine this is specifically built for, well, crafting recipes and not processing recipes. So I'm going to use a clever workaround with an interface and an export bus. I'm just going to put a crafting card in an export bus and hope for the best. It's a fairly simple system. And you know, for the sake of it looking nice, I think I'm just going to stick with a panel interface. Put down one of these, put down one of those, one of these, and then hook this all up to each other. So this export bus wishes to export, well, plutonium and polonium back into the system. And I would like to use a crafting card, this one right here, and set it to do not use stocked items, only craft items when exporting. So the other option is to use stocked items or craft items. So I would not want the polonium and plutonium to just constantly loop around. I want acceleration cards on this, not accelerators, acceleration cards please, on that thing. And I think I'm ready. This should also mean that this is pretty much completely saturated, 32 of 32. It was a 30. And yeah, both of these are online, ready to go. And if all of this works, there should be crafting requests coming in for this stuff. So finally, after all of this, at long last, I think I'm ready to hit the activate button. And instead of burning at a piddly 0.1 millibuckets per tick, I can put this up to 10 and see how my system does. Now, this seems to be building up, and that is a cause for concern. I think a few acceleration cards are in order, like so, just so that this doesn't back up, right? That's constantly evacuating the waste. Oh, the steam's constantly going out, but it is building up, and I don't like that fact. And this power is also constantly leaving. Now, the steam buildup is not a cause for concern because eventually if this turbine is to ever fill up, which actually, in hindsight, it won't. Concerning. I'll come back to the steam problem later. For now, I want to check in on the nuclear waste, which should have been being produced. And going into right here, there's none there. And that would mean that all of the nuclear waste is in here. Yep, there's 1,000 millibuckets of spent nuclear waste, which I would like to output onto the left there. I broke and reset these, so I bet, yeah, the guy on the top had extra water in here. And its settings got to reset. So item config, auto eject on, input output, auto eject, and input. Yep, perfect. Now this is requesting fluoride dust, and the nuclear waste is being produced. Cool, cool, cool. This seems to be working. And down here, this should be filling up with spent nuclear waste, but it isn't. What's happening? Where's all my spent nuclear waste going? What? And obviously that's because, well, the back is listed as an input. I wouldn't understand why this wouldn't just accept the nuclear waste. Can I not put nuclear waste in a chemical tank? Well, I guess not. Fine. Can I put it in a barrel? From the side? It doesn't seem like I can. Interesting. Actually, I've just realized that all of these pipes and barrels have like a directionality to them. You can only input and output stuff from the top and the bottom. So maybe that's the case here. Maybe this should be up here. And I've just copied that here. So that device configuration goes into that. And if I do this, does this now fill up with? Once it is online. Doesn't seem like it does. What is happening here? I don't quite understand. Aha! Putting it in a barrel seems to have worked. Now this barrel I cannot touch or move, and the only way to interact with this barrel happens to be to go beneath it. So this is the only solution I can come up with for now, unfortunately. And this does involve me clicking on this barrel with a wrench. Now that is spooky, but I think if I do that and then do that, all of this waste should be in these barrels and should be disposed of rather rapidly. Yeah, because there's hundreds of barrels here, so, you know, whatever spent nuclear waste I am creating should basically come down to this barrel and then be split across all of these, which have a tick rate to get rid of it, and that's how I'm disposing of all of my nuclear waste. Cool. Ooh, and I haven't realized why the steam was building up. It's because somewhere, somehow, I have too many interfaces somewhere, and this device is now missing a channel. Crap, I have to do something about that. I can't just leave that hanging. And I think the simplest solution would be to get rid of this P2P and just directly wire out a redstone signal from this. So I'm going to do that and that. That means I also don't need this. And just because I can, I'll use this block right here. I'm hoping with some redstone, I should be able to just connect up right there. And as the sun is setting, the power is indeed going down. Ooh, power doesn't quite make it though, so a repeater will come in handy. Sort of like so. And with sunlight on its head, this has instantly produced all of its stuff. And if I go downstairs, there should be one spare channel from one less P2P tunnel. And there should be an interface active over here. Cool. Now, what about the steam? Yeah, for some reason the steam still isn't pushing itself out. How interesting. I have decided, after a whole bunch of faffing about, that this seems to be the best bet for moving items in mass from point A to point B. Now, the reactor's off at the moment, but as you can see, even at, what's the current burn rate? 10 millibuckets per tick. This thing is now filling up with steam. And I should now be able to go here instead. And put down the entangler porter. And now I would need an interface such that... What if I just take this and put it directly on top of this? And then tell it to push steam into the bottom. Chemicals eject on. There we are. That's so much nicer. There was a big blip in the amount of steam that was pushed in. And now, finally, a throughput unlimited solution, as far as I can tell. Yeah, and now this is producing actual decent power. Now, even while running at 10 millibuckets of takeoff burn rate, this is still building up fuel ever so slowly. So I think I'm gonna turn it up to 11. Yeah. And fissile fuel still just seems to be coming in. It's at 41, 39, 43, 45, 50. Yeah, so it's abundantly clear that this can go higher. How about 100 millibuckets per tick? Let's see. The number still just seems to be going up. What can I say? Okay, well, this does mean that the more steam I produce, the more power this thing produces. In fact, this is finally producing 1 million RF per tick. And this would probably mean that I am now finally putting energy into my system. I now have excess power again. Hooray! Okay, well, I have spent the last few minutes going up and up and up, and now I'm at 200. But what I really want to do next is set up a safety system that dumps everything into trash, basically. Like I'm dumping water, and I was dumping steam earlier. I would like to dump all of my steam into the trash if I exceed a certain threshold of, well, power, because at the moment all this Fe that I'm producing is being stored. But once this does fill up, this turbine will fill up with steam eventually, and the steam will back up into the reactor, which will just cause an increase in temperature. So let me cook something up and I'll walk you through the system that I create. And this is the system I've come up with. I feel like it's a rather intelligent one, using the ME toggle bus and a reactor logic adapter. So the reactor will output a redstone signal positive, like a positive redstone signal, if the temperature becomes too high. In that event, this toggle bus will turn into a regular bus, and then this interface will be able to see this storage bus. And well, both of these are connected to the main network, so this is an independent subnet that basically trashes all of the steam as fast as this port can put out. So if all of this works, I should actually never ever have to deal with reactor problems ever again. I'm just hoping that this system of radioactive barrels can keep up with all of the fuel that I'm producing, and there seems to be some here, but you can already see how quickly that's dispersing. And in fact, I think there's only a couple here that actually have nuclear waste in them. Neat. And I do wonder how much of nuclear waste am I producing in general? 100. Now, I do not have an alarm for nuclear waste, unfortunately. And in hindsight, I think I should put that in right about now, because if there's a backup for some reason, I'd be in deep trouble. And this would have been between clips here, but I'm just testing out the functionality of these quantum entanglement porters and redstone modes, because given that it couldn't even trash enough steam into the turbine, I'm unsure if it can manage to trash all the steam that might build up in case it's about to fail. And it turns out that, for example, that entanglement porter is filled with water, so this entanglement porter is filled with water because they're both on the frequency test. And this one is redstone mode normal, but because it's off, it's not exporting to the trash can. But the moment I turn it on, all of it is instantly gone. It never even gets a chance to show up. But if I turn it off, it fills up, and then it fills up some more. But if I turn it on, it's all gone instantly. So this is pretty much conclusive evidence about the fact that there is a better solution out there. And it's much simpler than I thought. So using this goofy toggle bus, what I really just need to do is hook that up to a block and then have the entanglement porter basically push into the trash can. Yeah, sort of like this. And I have already tested this. This can pretty much dump the entire buffer of steam instantly into this. It takes like a few seconds. And yeah, I think that's more than enough throughput capacity. Yeah, the logistic port of the reactor powers the calcite block. This thing has redstone detection normal and chemicals. Steam is a chemical, auto eject is on, and this only works if there's power, so it only ejects up to the trash can. If and when it receives power, that only happens when the reactor overheats. A pretty neat system, if you ask me. And I think this is the perfect opportunity to address something that has been plaguing me for a while now. For whatever reason, sulfuric acid seems to back up into these dissolution chambers, and I think it has something to do with the fact that I'm using the block recipe instead of the normal one. And so far, every time this has happened, I've just taken my gauge dropper and done that, and then just shift click that, and then do that, and then do the same, so that this can continue working again. But I'm convinced it's to do with the fact that every single time this runs, a little bit of sulfuric acid just backs up. And of course, over time, that means that there's a bunch of sulfuric acid backing up between the both of these. And eventually this fills up, cannot accept any more sulfuric acid, and thus stops crafting. And so with these two spare channels, I think I'm gonna make the sulfuric acid a passive input into these guys, and then change the patterns to only use fluoride blocks or just the dust and speed up these. Yeah. And then that'll be 31 of 32 channels. And then I guess I'll have one spare channel for shenanigans later on down the line. I'll come up with something. Or simply, this thing has 4 channels all the way down, so I can just slap 2 of these on here, give these power, or not power, I mean give these crafting cards, and drag in the sulfuric acid, like that, and like that. Now the last thing I would need to do is grab both of these patterns, and then modify this to never use sulfuric acid. 0. Set. Or alternatively, you can just right click, and it's gone. It's pretty much that simple. Now, I get to do something that I've been waiting to do for a long time, and that is just cancel that craft. All this uranium oxide is fine, it'll just get used up in this one. But this means that finally, I have rid myself of the problem of not having enough hexafluoride, because these machines can finally be sped up, and the sulfuric acid will just passively be kept up. And having cleared that hanging craft for nuclear fuel, you can clearly see that the new fissile fuel is constantly piping itself into here. Now, I do want to know what happens if I actually turn the burner up. So let's just say 250. What happens then? Ooh, the temperature's going up. But you know, given the fact that this is running fairly cool and it's constantly full of water, I don't see why this would ever explode. At least it shouldn't. It has ample amounts of coolant. Right, well, let's go further. Let's go 300. Yeah, that's going into the reds now. Oh, that's damaged. Whoa. That's no bueno. And that's what happens. If this damage goes up to 100%, the reactor explodes, and you get a lot of green air. That means that you've been poisoned with radiation. That is not good. Now, I believe if I turn this back down to 200, the reactor should just continue running pretty much okay, and the damage number will just slowly go down over time. But I'm just gonna wait until the damage automatically pretty much goes down. So yeah, that's how you break nuclear reactors, guys. After a bunch of AFKing and a whole lot of production in both the polonium and plutonium department, I think we're ready for the next big step towards antimatter, and that is the supercritical phase shifting. Now, the SPS is another nice multi-block for Mekanism, and it can use either structural glass or reactor glass. I'm just going to stick with the kind that I have. As you can see in the tooltips, it says but can be used in the SPS multi-block. Both of those. And it's recipes time. Actually, that doesn't need a recipe, I'll just need a few. That I will make a recipe for, along with this thing. Now, I've done this enough times to know that I need exactly 60 of these. to make the reactor itself, and I need a bunch of ports. I'm going to be using a single supercharged coil on one gate, so only 1 million RF, and I think I will need one more for input and then one more for output. One will get the polonium in and one will get the antimatter out. I just have to get 12 more of these and we're golden. Oh, of course I'll need glass. And if memory serves me right, I should be able to make 122 reactor glass. I have spares, I guess. Perfect. Now to find a spot for this slightly large multi-block. Where would this multi-block look nice? I wonder. I think I'll put it here. I was thinking about what to do with the space and, well, maybe I should put it right there, centered on the rest of the base. That might look okay. How does this look? I think this looks pretty neat, especially given the fact that there can be a fusion reactor right here and it's slightly smaller, perfectly in line. Yeah, I think this is pretty cool. And yeah, this is how the multi-block is built. You have a fat 3x3, like a 3x3 plus. So it's a 3x3 with each side extended. Then you build this shape on it. Then you just build the 3x3 plus sign again. So that goes up 3. That's incorrect, unfortunately. Fill that bit in. That is also incorrect. And something like this. Did about do it. You get another fat 3x3 on this side. Like so. Then you do the same on this side, so you'd get more 3x3s. Like so. And then join these up. And fill in this corner. So if the corner looks like this, 3, 2, and 1, you know you're doing something right. And it'll be the opposite going up. So 1, the 2, and then this will be the 3. Okay. I can get this right. This will be the 3. That. And I've just built out the fat pluses. And now I'm going to do the interior corners, or the exterior corners, depending on whether you look at it from the inside or the outside. It's all about perspective anyways. And voila, here it is, the SPS. Now, all that's missing is the ports. I want to put power in the top, of course. Power goes here. And an input for antimatter, or an output for antimatter, and an input for polonium. Hell yeah. And outside of cleaning up these drawers, I have gone ahead and removed the autocraft for plutonium. And won't be needing plutonium anymore because plutonium is actually only used in very few things, most of which is the SPS casing, and the rest is just to make more fissile fuel. So realistically, I don't expect myself needing any more plutonium anytime soon. I already have about 5,000 of it right here, and I think I'm done. The rest of these channels will now be dedicated to an SPS right there. And for my final build of this episode, I need the stuff on my hands. The interface goes here, the export bus goes here, the interface gets a crafting upgrade, and it is going to request polonium. Yes, it will. Now, because of the crafting upgrade, it will auto get the polonium in here, hopefully, once it's set up. And it'll also get an induction card to power the chemical crystallizer, which gets set up with this as an input for energy and, well, an output for items. And the back will be an input for chemicals. Now, and I think that's everything for this. This guy will then output polonium into the SPS and get connected there. Lastly, I need one quartz fiber to make sure that this little thing gets powered. Now, I think that is everything. Oh, it seems I've totally forgotten a storage bus because of course this is a subnet. I need one extra channel to set up more processing for polonium in case I use it in large amounts. Now, for my final trick, I will link that wireless connector to this one up here. And hopefully, this thing should come online. This is online. That is online. And eventually, hopefully, What am I missing here? There's nothing being requested. It should be requesting polonium. There's polonium here. Oh. We are now producing antimatter ever so slowly. You know what I realized? I have forgotten to set this as an output. So what I have to do is configure chemicals, and I think shift right click this to be an output. Now this has antimatter, and once this fills up with 1,000 millibuckets, this will turn into 1 antimatter, which it should then hopefully output into the left. Now we're running with 1 million FE per tick, coming straight from these turbines and my system. You can see the numbers, well, pretty much fluctuating, but going down. That's because this turbine is spinning up. Perfect. Here we are. Isn't this so beautiful? I love the look of these machines. And with all of this out of the way, I want to call this episode right here. With the SPS actively running behind me, I think I have achieved a fairly decent amount in this episode. So, with all that being said, this has been KSA in All the Mods 10. And I'll see you next time.